Oh, there we go.
Oh,
I see.
sorry.
Okay, great. So Amy,
Present and alone.
thank you. Anne,
And alone.
April,
Present and alone.
Jean,
Present and alone.
I'm present and also alone. Thank you very much. We'll move to agenda item number 2, minutes of the previous meeting. The October 6th minutes are out there. Is there a motion?
Andy, before we have a motion, could we please have discussion?
So typically discussion's done after a motion. Is there some reason that you would want to delay this one?
Absolutely. I think it would be most expedient to discuss if there's anything that needs to be corrected in the minutes before we make a motion and then to amend the motion.
Sure. Do you have corrections?
I do. On page 2, second paragraph, it states, Ms. Filani also gave a shout out to Sandy Valine for the notes. I believe that was Ms. Bond. I don't know if we can wait for confirmation.
Yes, that was Ann.
Okay. And then on page 6, next to last paragraph, it states, Ms. Villani wondered if the request should be discussed with the area schools. That was not me. I do believe that may have been Mrs. Manzelli.
Which one, April?
Page 6, next to last paragraph, second to last, it says, Ms. Villani wondered if the request should be discussed with the area schools.
Yeah, that's me. Thank you.
If there's no anyone else, does anyone else have anything they would like to bring forth?
I do not.
Then I would like to make a motion that we accept the minutes of October 6th, 2020 with the corrections mentioned.
I'll second.
I'll second that.
Great.
Can't beat me.
I don't get to do it much. So on a roll call vote, well, is there any other discussion? Seeing none. So on a roll call vote to accept the meeting minutes of 10:06 with the amendments proposed. Anne,
Yes.
Jean,
Dane.
April,
I left early.
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
and I'm yes. Thank you. So that moves us to agenda item number 3, immediate business. First letter A, public comments, 15 minutes. As we've talked about before, please try to keep your comments brief. There's a typical guideline of 3 minutes. If we can stay under that, that'd be great in case there's a lot of people that want to talk. If this is your first time joining a remote meeting, we're going to have one of the hosts look for hands and go ahead and let those people speak. And then when that's finished and we run out of hands or we get close to that 15 minutes, we'll open up the phone lines a few at a time. And I'll ask you to just state your name if you would like to participate. So with that, and just a reminder, generally the comments should have to do with something that's on the agenda tonight and should be respectful. So Mr. Morris, are you taking care of hands today? All right.
Andy, this is April. Do we also have a timekeeper tonight for public comment?
Yep, I've actually got a stopwatch right in front of me.
Thank you.
All right, I currently don't see any hands. Oh, here we go. Melanie.
All right, Melanie.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I just have a quick comment regarding Mondays possibly becoming an in-person instructional school day. I do think that the teachers should be asked about how they feel about that. As of right now, we need to remember they're running 2 separate cohorts of students, and we all know that classroom dynamics are not all the same. Not every learns at the same pace. And I worry that the teachers may continue to need this time to plan and replan for their 2 different types of cohorts. While I understand the need of having children in the classroom one more day, I'm not sure that it's sustainable during a pandemic while the staff may be fluctuating due to the need to quarantine. And I do worry that if we decide tonight to do this, that it may push the envelope and jeopardize the ability to the schools to stay in a hybrid format. I do think that if it's at all possible that children receiving services through an IEP should be able to receive some of their services on Monday, if their service provider is available. Best practice is an inclusive classroom with the child being in the classroom as much as possible and services being pushed into the classroom as much as possible. But in a pandemic, in a hybrid model, that's now 2 days a week. So I can understand why some of the parents are upset that they're being pulled, like I get it, on the only 2 days that they're in school. If there's any way for the board to visit Mondays, being allowed for children to receive either some of their IEP services, Title I services, or any child that needs some extra assistance, I think that may help a lot of our Pembroke families with the pressure of opening schools on Monday. And thank you for everything you guys are doing. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands.
Okay, looks like we have 4 on the phone right now, so we can do that and then do one last check for hands.
Okay. Oh,
Hi, Dan. This is Tori. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, could I get your name again?
Tori Barber.
Yep, go ahead, Tori.
All right. Good evening. My name is Tori Barber, and I'm president of the Education Association. Tonight, we'll be making a very important decision regarding the Pembroke schools. One of the topics that will be discussed is the Monday Flex Day. Again, our mission above all else is to provide the best and safest education possible for the students in Pembroke. Teachers believe that the education of our students is the cornerstone of this community, and the association feels that the current hybrid model with a Monday Flex Day is the best and safest way to fulfill that mission. The EAP surveyed the staff, and out of the 144 certified staff members, 91 people responded to our survey. Of those 91 responses, 79 said that they were in favor of keeping the Flex Day. A common theme across all 3 buildings is that we utilize many hours on Mondays to meet with students, either those who are fully remote who need extra help. At PA, the Flex Day is the only time in which they're able to meet with their fully remote students via Google Meet. Due to the synchronous nature of the fully remote schedule, PA faculty have both remote and in-person students concurrently, which doesn't allow for working directly with remote students without neglecting those we have in front of them. Both the teachers with remote students at PA and the teachers with full remote classes at Hill and Three Rivers require ongoing PD to redesign in-person curriculum to be successfully implemented for a virtual classroom. Without this delicate time, teachers will struggle to complete this additional task along with other responsibilities that are incumbent upon us. Many of our special education services are also being provided during this time. This enables students to receive services without missing the already reduced face-to-face class time. The EAP has also encouraged the school board members to visit the school during the current remote or hybrid model to be able to make the best decision for the students possible. I again would like to personally invite any school board member to join me and other members and spend time inside the classroom to see what a typical day looks like for both students and staff in the current hybrid model. Thank you very much for everything you do. I'm all set.
Thanks, Tori.
Yep.
There are still a few phone lines open. If you're called in and you have something you'd like to contribute, go ahead and state your name. Okay, hearing none. If you want to close those up, are there any other hands?
no other hands.
Okay. Then we will go ahead and move on to agenda item 3B, agenda review. Are there any board members that have anything? Dan, I did get your email about non-public. That we'll do that when we get to that point. Are there anybody else that has anything they would like to adjust or add at the agenda?
I have a couple, Andy.
Okay, go ahead.
We need to go into non-public under small letter A and C. And then under transportation, we have a couple of changes on the bus routes, very minor changes. that Linda is here to go over. And we also have an appeal of a bus stop, and Linda will be present to speak to that as well. The parents, 3 parents sent in emails that are unable to be with us tonight, but they did send the emails, and I did get them in your drive. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at them. Some things came in a little bit late, and that's it.
Okay. And so we can do the bus stop under transportation. Is there anything that we actually need to add? New non-public and non-public bus stop and transportation.
No, just those 2 things to transportation, and then the non-public is A and C.
Okay. Got that. Any others?
This is Amy. I just wanted to make sure that we had a space to get an update, or at least address the process that we were going to move forward with the AREA committee or board to talk about the location of elections moving forward. You know, last month we talked about just the presidential election, and that we didn't want to decide anything further because we wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to weigh in, because that issue regarded Pembroke Academy. And so I just don't want that to like drop off our radar for too long. It's not urgent now, but.
We've got election location on 4C, so we can see if Patty has any updates for anything past November.
Okay.
Anything else?
Andy, this is Ann. I thought we had a running agenda on our current budget and what it looks like. I didn't see that on the agenda. Is that something that we will not be doing, or is that something that has to be added?
No, I think it just wasn't on tonight because it's heavy, and Amber's working on all the budgets right now. And I believe our next meeting, our first November meeting, is when we're supposed to see a draft of the full budget for next year. So I think we can probably get an update on status for this year at that point as well.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if Amber's even with it. There's an Amber. I don't know if that's our Amber or not. But yeah, I think we'll be talking a lot about budget next meeting.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Okay. Then we will go on to letter C, gifts and donations. Hey, we have one.
And I'm going to let Josh Coughlin speak to that one.
All right.
So we received our donation from the PALS group, working with Jen Murphy at the end of the summer for PPE for the school district. So I just want to give them their proper shout out and thank them for everything that they gave us and everything that they do for our school district. With that, we received 42 bottles of hand sanitizer, ranging from 2 ounces to 1 gallon. We received 19 containers of disinfecting wipes, 900 disposable masks, 100 reusable masks, handmade for lack of better words, and 1 can of Lysol. So thank you to PALS, and thank you to Jen for everything they do for the school district.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thanks for bringing it up and letting us say that in public and recognize them. Any questions for Josh on that donation? All right. So then we can move on.
This is April. Sorry, I was just having trouble hitting my mute button. I do have a question for Josh regarding that donation. I know we've heard some things about updating the MSDS sheets. Just want to make sure there's no issue with that. Those have all been updated for the donations we've received.
So everything that we've received and passed out or distributed is updated. There is still some stuff that's sitting in our back room that I haven't updated. On our SDS manual, nothing leaves that room until it's updated within.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Josh.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So agenda item 3D, consent agenda.
We have one staff request that was put in your drive. If there are no questions, it can be voted on now, but if people wanted to discuss it, we would have to do that in non-public session.
So I guess I will leave a moment to see if there is a motion around that item, and if not, we will talk about it in non-public.
can you just give us a moment to make sure we know what the item is?
Sure.
I'm willing to make a motion once my board mates have had an opportunity to review that.
Andy, this is Ian. I have a question on salary, how that's going to be presented with this request.
Okay, let's just table it till non-public then.
Thank you. It's a quick question.
Sure. No worries. So that was the only one there. So we're on to 3E, field trips. Patty, you wanted to talk to us about overnight field trips.
Sure. So typically in September, one of your first or second meetings, we come in with a whole list of our field trips that will take place throughout the school year that are overnight, and we present them to you and ask for your approval. And you probably have noticed that we haven't brought any forward. We've been having conversation as a leadership team, wanting to hold off and just sort of fingers crossed that maybe we would be able to pull off some of our trips that occur typically in the spring, knowing how much students love to celebrate their achievements and their, getting to 6th grade and 8th grade and senior year. Unfortunately, as time has gone on, it doesn't feel like those are going to be able to happen in terms of making plans now, signing contracts, having to fundraise, right away for those trips. There's a ton of planning that goes into those, and it would need to start now. And we were hesitant to sign any contracts because you can have difficulty getting money back, as we saw last year. So at this point, the leadership is not planning on proposing any overnight field trips, and we just wanted to put that out there and have any, answer any questions the board may have.
All right. Any questions for Patty about that?
Andy, this is April. First off, I just want to say that I appreciate our staff and administration really wanting to keep our kids safe during the pandemic, and I want to recognize that and praise them for that. I'm curious, have there been any alternatives possibly discussed to overnight field trips?
That's a great question. Thank you. I meant to mention that we did have that conversation so that we could do some fundraising, and, instead of advertising that we're fundraising for the 8th grade trip, we are fundraising for a celebration to be determined. So, giving them the chance to raise money, knowing that they will be recognized and something fun will be planned, but not knowing quite yet what that might look like.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, thanks, Patty. So agenda item 3F is Pittsfield Tuition Communication. It's a letter in the drive. Patty, you want to introduce that one?
Sure. So I received an email. There was really no introduction in the email. It was just as I placed in the drive that just for public. Do you want me to read a little bit of it, Andy, so people know what we're discussing? So I received a letter on October 13th that said, "Dear Superintendent, the Pittsfield School Board has asked me to contact you regarding your willingness to accept our 9th to 12th students to your high school. This request is in response to Warrant Article 8, voter approval, March 2020, for the school board to seek viable options for its high school students." So they've informed us that they presently enroll 154 students, and that if we are interested, they would like to accelerate the conversation to discuss cost, length of the agreement, transportation, and other things. So if the board is interested in that conversation, we would most likely need to put together a small committee for tuition negotiations. And also I would take your direction in order to respond to Superintendent Graziano with respect to your interest in pursuing this.
Thank you. Amy?
I just wanted to flag that I would request on behalf of the AREA that we not make any, irrevocable decisions on this issue without having a conversation with them. Obviously, this would be a really large undertaking, and I just wanted to make sure that we were keeping the whole AREA group in mind as we were moving forward.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
Andy, this is Ian. I would like to have them either get on one of our calls and just give us information on even what time frame they're looking at to start this agreement.
I agree with that. I think, Patty, how, would you feel comfortable inviting either interim superintendent Graziano or their board chair or somebody to join us at our next meeting or the meeting after that and to kind of give us some more detail of what they're looking for here?
Sure, I'm happy to do that.
Are there any other questions for Patty?
Gene, I'm just thinking if we could get this letter to the other AREA boards, like Amy had suggested, as soon as possible. And then if a meeting is set with Superintendent Graziano, maybe we could invite a representative from each of those boards to be at that meeting also.
I think that's a really good idea. I think Patty's already, or Kathy has already set up a spot in the drive where we kind of put things from our meetings for them to see. If Amy, maybe as you've been dealing with them a lot, if you want to just shoot them a note after this meeting saying, hey, you know, we put this out there, it's important, go check it out so that they know there's something there.
Happy to do that.
But yeah, I think the more voices, the better. One question I had quick, actually, April, do you have any questions before I ask mine? Right. I just wanted to get an idea quickly. I know that this is cart before the horse and at the risk of opening a can of worms. I just wanted to ask Mr. Morris real quick, very roughly, quick and dirty, yes or no type of thing. Can our building hold 154 more students the way it is?
That's a hard question. I think it's important to note that the letter went out to many different districts, superintendents and principals. So it's not like it's an exclusive inquiry on our part. And more to the point, I'm not sure that it would be the entire 150. This is really in the very early stages of this. I think, if we're going to talk about that, we need to consider whether or not that's in a post-COVID world or not, because that makes a huge difference too.
Gotcha. All right. So we will ask Patty, do you mind doing the communication to invite a representative from Pittsfield to our next meeting?
Sure, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Are there any other questions on this?
Yeah, Andy, this is Ann. Maybe we can invite them to one of the area agreement meetings because it is a public meeting, so they can get a feel of how things are done through the area agreement just with the other districts.
Yeah, do you know, do either of you know when the next AREA meeting is scheduled? I can't remember. I think it's in November, but.
Yeah, it's November. I got it here.
Maybe we
I'll
leave
get it
that
for
one
you.
up to, yeah, I'm happy with that, but maybe one of you, I keep saying you two because I'm looking, Amy or Ann, if you want to communicate with Carl on that, being the chair of that board, I don't want to make that decision for him, but if he wants to do that, it's his prerogative.
Communication, and the meeting is November 10th.
Thank you. Okay, well, that's a interesting tidbit. One more thing for everybody to think about while they should be sleeping. All right, if there's no other questions, then we move on to 3G, letter regarding instructional days and hours proposed by Deerfield. I put a little note in the agenda just so people knew what I was talking about. I think most of our board was actually at the ARE, or but the SAU meeting, or no, it doesn't matter. So Deerfield has, is that in the drive? I'm sorry. Deerfield has written a very rough draft of a letter. I'll go ahead and read it quickly just so that the public can get an idea. From the Deerfield School Board, we write with a sense of urgency to consider relaxing or eliminating the minimum standard of 180 days or 990 hours as the length of the school year. We were considering this letter prior to the COVID pandemic. So really what they're talking about here is that a lot of the onus of how to handle the pandemic situation in our schools was put locally on school districts. and some of them decided to say open 2 weeks late, or something like that. Furthermore, even in the hybrid model that most schools are in right now, they're in a typical school year. There are 5 remote days that you're allowed to use, and it's basically blizzard bags, right? But there was an executive order, of course, in the spring waiving that limitation so that we could be fully remote. Technically, I believe it is still the case that that emergency order has expired. So Deerfield has some concerns around how late the kids might have to go to school into June, or if aid could be taken away if something really bad happened, since that executive order has expired, that the state could maybe possibly say, well, you used more than 5 remote days when you weren't authorized to. So anyway, they've just got some general concerns with the requirement of the 180 days or 990 instructional hours, and are asking that each school district be able to make that decision for themselves. So they brought this to the SAU schools at the SAU meeting and asked if any of the other boards had any interest in signing this letter with them. They also did want to stress that this is very rough draft that they threw together, and they would be open to changes or anything with language, but they just wanted to get the general idea out and start the conversation. So I wanted to bring that to this board to talk about, and also for the public to hear. So if there's questions, comments regarding that, I'll take those. So Ann and Amy both on mute. Ann, you go ahead.
A quick question. What are we using right now for Pembroke? How are our days or hours are counted? Because I know in the teacher's contract, we changed from days to hours.
Yep. So this is the first year of ours, right, Patty?
Yes, we are currently using hours.
So how many hours are we counting for each day? Because I know we don't count Monday, or do we count Monday as an instructional day?
Yep.
Even though it's...
Yep, all 5 days of the week count as school days.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody? Oh, I'm sorry, Amy, did you still have a question?
Yeah, thanks. I feel like this is, so for my day job, I have been a registered lobbyist. I think lobbying is great. I think it's a very important function. So I don't mean to use that word badly. But this to me is the first time that the board has called upon to take a position that would be kind of like, lobbying the state government towards something or against something or what have you. And I've not had that experience in this board before. And so I was just looking for a little guidance from either Patty or board members with more seniority than me about, how that usually works. Do we usually work these type of issues through the school board association? Is the administration typically involved, or is it really the school board taking an independent action? Just looking for a little bit of context.
All I can tell you, Amy, the only 2 things that pop up in the short time that I've been on the board that I recall are, we were asked if we wanted to join in one of the lawsuits. And in that case, being legal, Dean came to one of our meetings, explained it to us, and explained, we had several options: either join the lawsuit in full, or be an interested party, or ignore it altogether. And now I forgot what the second one was. I know that there was another one. I think annually, there's a delegate assembly for school board association, and they kind of say, this is the position the school board association is taking on these things, and they do some lobbying of their own. And at the delegate assembly, we have a chance, our representative has a chance to weigh in on behalf of Pembroke on those things that the school board association has said that they're interested in that particular year. In my opinion, this seems like a much more informal thing than both of those. But that's pretty much all the information I have. Patty, do you want to add any color to that?
The only other thing that I can think of during my tenure was a letter to the government asking them to fully fund education and special education. So that was sort of a demand letter that many boards in the state made. Obviously didn't get us very far. I think this is more of an informal it's really the will of the Pembroke board. So you could say, no, we like the guidelines that are in the ed rules that require a minimum number of days or hours. Or if you feel like because of the pandemic, you'd like to ask them to make a consideration, we can certainly do that. I think it would take an emergency order from the governor because this is a statute. And I did explain that it would need to go through rulemaking. There is an emergency rule that's being is supposed to be done in July that extends, but there's been no mention to changing the days and hours requirement of the school year. So it's really up to the board if you have an opinion on this and you want to support that notion.
If I may follow up, do you anticipate that we would need a change like that? If you can get out that crystal ball and predict exactly what the next several months are going to be like?
I think it does depend on what the rest of this year looks like. Last year, you may or may not remember, people got to the end and they were kind of begging, like, let this be over. Do we really have to go every single hour of every single day to end this school year? And there were no waivers granted. The only waiver that was granted was for those schools that had submitted a certain number of days, they were able to add up their hours. So if they were able to finish earlier because they had enough hours, then they were granted permission to do that. But there was no waiver at all from the Department of Education. And the commissioner said as much, that he didn't have the authority to waive those days. So I guess I don't want to be doom and gloom, but if we got into a position like we were in last year, I know people were really ready to be done early, and that would give you some flexibility if that were the case.
Amy, I guess just to add, because if you were not at that meeting, and I'm going to try to say without editorializing it all, the person that presented the letter from Deerfield definitely had a healthy skepticism of processes within state government and was very wary of what the end of the year could look like if it went sideways, we'll say. And there was an opposing viewpoint from Allenstown that seemed unlikely, that there's such velocity and momentum right now around education funding and caring about education in the state that their opinion was that it would be pretty unlikely that they would take a major step in really trying to hurt a bunch of schools. So those were kind of opposing viewpoints on the matter, I guess. Ann, go ahead.
The question, I didn't write it down fast enough. I apologize, Patty. So when you were saying that each day counts, how many hours for each day is counted Monday through Friday?
We have a cap on the number of hours that we can count in any school day, and our schedules are different in each of our schools. I don't have the exact hours and minutes with me, but I can get you that breakdown for the next meeting if you'd like.
Okay, because I'm just wondering why Deerfield would do this letter, because they're hybrid also.
Yeah, so I don't think it's an issue with what the current model that we're in. The issue would come at the end of the year when, I think they're thinking about last year, that we got to the end, the schools were completely closed and everybody was just really struggling to get through, and there was no flexibility on, cutting the school year a few days short, for instance. So I don't think it's about anything to do with our current education model.
So if we did have a situation, we all go back remote, we still would count the same hours. I'm just trying to figure out why they need the letter.
I think, and don't quote me on this, Ann, I'm just going off what Nate said and how I interpret it, so I could be wrong. I think what his concern is, and again, it seems to be some skepticism there, but if he's correct and the executive order has expired that waived the 5-day maximum. So in a normal school year, you can only have 5 remote days. And that got waived at the end of last school year. And technically, at least what he said, is that executive order has expired. So technically, the rule right now is that only 5 remote days in this school year can count as school days. And obviously, every district has used way more than 5 already. So I think his fear is that it could get, possibly at the end of the year, somebody say, oh, well, you're supposed to have 180 school days and you've only had 90 because you only went to school half the days or whatever. I think I tend to agree with where the person from Allenstown was on that. You'd have mass revolt. You know, every school in the state is, well, not every school, but most schools in the state, I think, are still hybrid. I think it'd be a very tough sell for anybody to say, you know, all those remote days don't count. But I think that's the point that he was trying to get across, if I understood him correctly, was that technically the way the rules are right now, we're all in violation.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, because the governor has given each district, you know, the authority to do as they need. And that's why I was confused, because some are 100% remote still, some are not. So I appreciate you outlining that. Thank you.
Any other questions around the letter? We can bring this back up next week if people have strong feelings too. Amy, go ahead.
This is Amy. I just wanted to say, you know, I read the letter as having 2 points. 1, the request for flexibility, and 2, the request for better guidance. And I agree with both of those sentiments. And I don't see any harm in signing on to a letter like this. But I do see potential downside in that maybe there won't be flexibility when we need it, and maybe we won't get more specific guidance when we know we would like it. So because of no, I don't see any harm in this, and I agree with the 2 primary sentiments, I would be fine with us signing on to a letter like this.
Noted.
Hi, Andy, it's Gene. The one thing I was thinking about after the meeting, and again tonight, is that, you know, it's all well and good that 5 school districts sign on to a letter and send it off to the Department of Education. But I think it would be extremely helpful if we were able to get the NHSBA involved in this also. It's a louder voice and could bring in other schools that, you know, that may have that fear at the end of the year where, you know, what's going to happen if we overran those 5 days, and if somebody really wants to, you know, put the hammer down on us. The NHSBA is basically would forward the information, not just from our SAU, but from other SAUs. They'll put it out there, and that will carry a lot more weight in Concord than SAU 53 will. So I think, you know, I'm fine with the letter also, like Amy said, but I think there probably has to be a little bit more to it than just our SAU.
I would agree. I'll leave that to Deerfield, as they're the ones that kind of initiated the thing. April, I wanted to give you a chance.
Thank you. I had my hand raised, but I don't know if you could see it. I think I'm having some problems. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, I had to log out and log back in because of some muting issues. So I think it's important that we label what we're talking about here. We're talking about ED Rule 306.18, and that references RSA 189:1 and RSA 189:24 for anyone who cares to take a look at that. I personally am opposed to the letter as currently written and joining on, simply because it's making a request that we waive the required number of hours that we're required as a school board to educate our children. And I personally would not like to get off the hook for educating our children. I am 100% on board with asking if there's anything in the works or asking for clarification, but I am not on board with requesting a waiver. The other thing is, in a previous meeting of this board, I don't remember the exact date, but this ED Rule 306.18 was referenced because it does talk about up to 5 days per year. We did ask our superintendent to submit a plan, and I'm not sure what the status of that is. It's when we were talking about how we're going to have school. I'd like to hear about that.
So we were informed that we did not need to submit a plan, and we were also advised that I might get the letters wrong. I think it's IMBA, the distance education policy, would also cover us, because we are allowed to, I guess it's distance learning is what this would be considered. So there were no concerns that the 5-day cap was going to be an issue.
That's good to know. April, I'm not sure if you were finished or not.
Yes, just in the premise, I'm okay for asking if there's something in the works or for clarification for the current school year, but I do not support asking for a waiver for the current school year. I think it's too early in the year. And again, we're all on the hook for making sure the kids in Pembroke get educated. And I, for one, am not for shortchanging our kids their education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy, this is Ann. I just have one last question. If there's only 5 days allowed, we've already exceeded that just for the first 2 weeks of remote.
Right. Right. That's what he was pointing out exactly. And I like I said, 80% of school districts in the state are in the same boat, so that's why he's worried.
Right.
Though I was not aware of the information that Patty just mentioned about distance learning. So I'm going to look up that policy because I'm interested to see what that says.
And I think also Amy addressed the information if it, or excuse me, if it was someone else at the meeting, addressed that if this was just written by a school board member or if it went through legal. Excuse me, I think it was Chris from Allenstown that said that. And they said it had not gone through any legal information. So that I would be concerned.
Andy, this is April again. My takeaway from the full SAU board meeting was the full SAU board did not take action on this item. And the walkaway was that Superintendent Warburton did acknowledge that there's some work that needs to be done by the superintendents and that this may or may not come back around, but we should be getting more information about this.
Yep, and I don't think we need any action tonight. I just wanted to open up the conversation. So if everybody want to kind of, mull it over in your mind, and then either at the next SAU meeting or at our next meeting, we can throw it around a little bit. I don't know if it will ever, to April's point, I don't know if there will ever come a point where they actually are ready to submit and ask us formally if we want to vote as a board to join this or not. But now at least we've got some questions answered. So if that day does come, we can figure it out. Is there any other questions, comments on that letter before we move on? All right. So agenda item 4, excuse me, continuing business. Letter A is transportation. So I don't think Amber's with us tonight, so I'll go and give that to Patty.
Sure. So the first update we wanted to provide was that we were able to provide coverage at both Three Rivers and Hill School. We had employees step up and agree to cover the before and after school time slots in order to have the 2 bus runs. So that was great news. Today was the first day because we needed to give parents notice of that. We sent out the routes last week. I think there were a couple of small hiccups, but overall it went very well. And we're hoping to keep those counts, both I think in school and the drivers are keeping counts so that we know in a couple of weeks if we're able to combine those runs like Linda had talked about. So that's the update on the routes. And as I said, Linda is here. We had a couple of tweaks. It didn't change the times on the routes, but I think maybe either a stop or 2 was added. She's going to review that with you, and then we can also hear the bus appeal.
Okay. Is Linda was on the phone, right, or not?
Yes, it should be a 603-736 number. So I'm not sure, Dan, if you can locate Linda.
That narrows it down to 2.
Right here.
Hey, there she is.
Yep, here we are.
All right. So a couple of changes on stops or routes or something first.
Yes, I had 3 on Yellow Bus. They were already previously approved. They were on the other bus routes that you approved. I just apparently overlooked them when Ms. Jones and I did these up. So there's really no new ones. And on Green Bus, it was Cross Country Road and Pembroke Hill that I also overlooked.
Okay. Do you need us to, Patty, do we need to approve this again with the changes? All right, so are there any questions by board members about these additional stops before we go ahead and take a vote?
Andy, this is Ann. So what she's saying is that there were just stops that she overlooked?
I think, Linda, are you, what I heard is the buses made these stops, they just weren't on the sheet that we were provided last time. Is that correct?
Correct. They were on the original route sheet, two that you previously approved. I just didn't get them transferred onto this one here.
And did that answer your question?
And not two.
Okay, so they are stopping, it just wasn't on printed.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Other questions?
Andy, this is April. Again, I just want to clarify, because I don't have the previous, sorry, there's a ton of feedback. I don't have the previous schedule to compare to right now. Are the arrival times at school or departure times at school changing? It sounds like they may not be, but I'm just looking for confirmation.
I don't have last week's in front of me. Linda, do you know offhand if the arrival time at each of the schools is changing based on these changes?
No, the times are the same. We get at Three Rivers for 7:30 and to Hill School by 7:40.
Thank you. Other questions?
Andy, this may be on topic or not on topic, but I find it very hard to follow when we don't have this information printed, because now I've got two iPads and a phone and a laptop trying to figure out all this information. Is there any way we can get this printed out?
I don't know. I mean, I usually print a couple of things here at the house. I usually print a copy of the agenda and then any other documents that I might want to write on while I'm doing it. I don't know if there's a way to get a packet when we're doing it this way or not.
Yeah, because right now I'm trying to find the bus routes. They're not in the shared drive for today. So now I'm trying to figure out where they are.
Yeah, they're in the 1020 meeting one. The preview thing looks yellow mostly.
Gotcha. All right, I'll look. Thank you.
Yeah. If you can't find it after, and let me know, because maybe there's some permission things or whatever. But it's usually pretty straightforward. Kathy just drops stuff in there, and it generally applies the same across the board. But if you're not seeing stuff, certainly let me or Patty know so we can have Kathy look into it.
Okay, I know it's in an email, so I'll probably find it quicker there. Thank you.
Any other questions, or excuse me, I'd accept a motion on this.
Motion to approve.
This is April. I have a question.
Hold on, I've got both of you. April, go ahead.
Sorry, Jean. I just have a question. I'm not sure if I missed it, but we had a couple of requests come in. Did I hear that if we approve the current bus schedule before us, that it would include these requests that we've received, the appeals?
No, I believe, well, it depends on how somebody makes a motion, but what I'm looking for a motion for right now is just this sheet that Linda has presented us without any information about any of the appeals. It'd be just the addition of the stops to the official document.
This is April. I will second Jean's motion to approve the bus schedule put before us tonight on 10/20.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, then on a roll call vote to accept the bus stops as listed on the document provided to us tonight. April?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you very much. Linda, did you want to address the appeals?
Yeah, I did remove the village school bus stop after the building was sold because the now owner had the playground parking lot chained off with no trespassing signs but I was still continuing to have students go under the chain and in there and playing. And last summer I had a student that got, and it wasn't on school time or waiting for a bus period time, that was in there, ended up getting hurt and taken to the hospital by ambulance. So I felt for safety reasons I had to get it out of there.
Thank you. We in our drive, we do have a few emails that Patty put in there from people requesting that bus stop be used. Patty, do you want to summarize, or is there much to tell about that?
No, I just, everything is in there, the emails that I received from the parents, and I did receive a couple of calls from people just basically reiterating what was already in the email.
Okay. So discussion around I guess the main topic is the village school, what used to be the village school bus stop.
So Andy, this is Ann. So did it get changed to the corner of Broadway and Maple? Or where was it moved to?
Okay.
I gotta find it myself. Linda, go ahead, Linda.
Okay. Originally, when I split them up, I couldn't find an area big enough for everyone. So I went from street to street and put one on each corner of the either Front and High or Pleasant and Appleton, places like that. And now with the new bus routes and consolidating the bus stops, I put one at Main Street and Union Street on the sidewalk that's right by the Congo Church. And then some students can also go over to 27 Broadway.
Any other questions or comments? So just a housekeeping question. Patty, do we only need a motion if we're going to change something, right? If there's no motion, then things just stay the way they are. Is that correct? Or would you like action either way?
Nope, that's correct. If there's no action taken, then the routes would stand as approved.
Okay. Does anybody have questions, comments, feelings on this?
Andy, this is Ann. I just have a question for Linda. Last night, the selectmen voted to make Church Street a portion of that one way. Are any buses going down Church Street at the moment?
Not Church Street, no.
Thank you.
Others?
I have a question. Did the person making the appeal receive the information that Linda just shared with us about the playground issue? Because if not, that would probably be helpful.
Yeah, I know there's a form that Linda fills out. Patty, does that information get communicated back to the person making the request?
No, when they make the request, they speak to Linda, and she can answer that question. I'm not sure what she told them when they called her.
I could have in one of the conversations. There seems to have been many lately. But which one, I'm not sure.
Okay. Any other questions?
Andy, this is April. In reading the request, I do see that the traffic on the road was one of the concerns that we're seeing. Do we have any data to support that based on the traffic that it may be unsafe for our children?
I guess we wouldn't, since we don't own that building on that street anymore. I don't think we would have any sort of traffic studies down there that were current. I think if there's a resident saying that the amount of traffic is unsafe, they would have to bring us some sort of information, I suppose.
This is April again. If the board takes no actions on the appeal, does the parent have a second step of an appeal?
I guess that's a question for Patty.
I'm thinking back, I think the last time we had a bus stop issue that wasn't resolved. The remedy was there used to be somebody that handled transportation at the Department of Ed, and they were asked to come out and look at the stop and determine whether it was safe or not. Since then, I'm not sure if that person is still there, and I know there was at one point a refusal to come out and do that. Linda may have memory of something else. She's been here longer than I have.
Yeah, we did. Gary used to come and do our stops when we were having issues with him and see if it would be a safe or not. And then he would write to me and to the school regarding his recommendations. Again, I don't know if he's still doing it either. I have his number. I can always give him a try.
This is April again. Is it possible to find out what the title of the employee is at the New Hampshire DOE who does the task being described?
Linda, do you know what that gentleman's title is?
I don't know.
Okay, if that's something that you can find and send to Patty or myself, that would be fantastic. If not, we can probably dig it up. I guess for my 2 cents, I see both sides of it. I certainly understand parents that don't want their kids in an unsafe environment walking back and forth to school. I also don't, like the idea of forcing a bus stop onto what is now, excuse me, private property, especially if there's a concern for safety there in and of itself. So I kind of see both sides. I guess where I fall on it right now is that we've spent a lot of time and man hours, not us, but Linda and Ms. Jones and some others on tweaking these things to make it work in the current situation. So I'm not inclined to make changes to it right now. We did just approve a new document, but didn't really change the routes. I don't know that messing with the routes right now is just the appropriate thing to do and have to re-notify everybody. And yeah, it just seems like not the time to be making changes. That's just my opinion.
Andy, this is Ann, and I apologize. I didn't hear what Linda was saying. That there's somebody at the Department of Transportation that goes out and surveys the stops to see if they're safe or not.
It's Department of Education.
Oh, okay. Because I know with April just asking about traffic studies, New Hampshire, the town of Pembroke contracts with the New Hampshire Regional and planning, so they would have the most current traffic studies in the areas in Pembroke.
Thank you. Any other questions, Amy?
Andy, just to expedite things, I'm not sure if this is the right information, but the New Hampshire Department of Safety has a position called the Pupil Transportation Supervisor, which is a position inside the Division of Motor Vehicles. And the phone number there is 271-1999. So that's the Pupil Transportation Supervisor, 271-1999.
Thanks, Linda. What are you trying to say? Go ahead.
This is Kelly from Dales. That
Oh,
person
hi,
has school bus drivers, that portion of pupil transportation.
Okay, so that's something different. Okay. Is there any other comment, question, or action before we move on?
Andy, this is Ian. I just wanted to find out with the change that the selectmen made last night concerning the way our street is going to be able to be traveled on. What information? How does the selectman get it to you, or how does the selectman get it to Patty?
I mean, I'm fine with email. I don't know, Patty, do you have a person in the town that you generally communicate with, and what's the best channel for that?
It's fine. In the past, sometimes the chair would send me information and copy David, or David can send it to me directly. It doesn't matter to me who it comes from. I'm happy to share it.
Okay, because there's going to be work on Route 28 with the bridge right near Bear Brook. that's going to shut down the road for 3 months. So I didn't know if this is information on that's getting to the school board.
Yeah, that would be great if you could get that to me, Ann, and I'll share it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. And as a note, and after the meeting tonight, this new document that we got with the stops, I'll make sure that VJ gets a copy of this.
Perfect. Yeah, because I didn't realize last night when we changed the direction of a street if they had anything to do with the bus stops, but I'll be cognitive of that going forward.
Great. Anything else before we move on? All right, hearing none, then we will move on to 4B. I guess thanks, appreciate it. And we'll move on to 4B, which is school instructional model. So Patty, give us a quick update on what the matrix looks like this week.
Sure. So we didn't have changes in terms of what column things fell in. There was an increase in the cases in Merrimack County. We're at 6.7 per 100,000. And then we're at 8 cases in the town of Pembroke. And Pembroke schools, there are 2 confirmed cases. They were not identified as cohort cases, so we stayed on the left-hand side of the hybrid column on that. And then I updated the county information on page 2. Not a lot of changes.
All right, questions around where we're at?
Andy, this is Ann. A question I wanted to find out if we could get the information on if those, I hate to say it this way, but the test, if the people are still alive, because I know currently the departments are testing everyone that passes away. And if they test positive, then it shows a positive case.
The information that I have is on the interactive dashboard that was posted for schools. I don't know how far that information can be drilled down, but I don't have access to that on that dashboard.
Thank you, Patty.
I think, and just to clarify what you're getting at, like, you know, I don't wish this, of course, but let's just say hypothetically speaking, all of these 8 people had passed away, then the risk for people in Pembroke would be significantly lower than if we had 8 alive people with coronavirus in Pembroke. Is that sort of what you're getting at?
In a way, a lot of people are saying, well, cases are going down, but then when they have spikes, we don't know if that's tested post-mortem or not.
I wanted to raise another issue. It's my understanding, and this is just an issue that, while really helpful, the numbers from the state school dashboard do not encompass everything. It's my understanding that under certain circumstances, the school is required to treat teachers or students alike in certain circumstances as being a presumed case of COVID, but those presumed cases are not reported on the dashboard as a case of COVID. Only tested positive cases are reported on the dashboard. And so I just wanted us to be aware of that.
Thank you. I probably look for a different site to see if I could get the information drilled down, but thank you.
Andy, this is April. I'm curious if our superintendent has any insight regarding the COVID at school numbers. There's some information going around that the numbers for schools do not show up on the dashboard until DHHS has performed contact tracing. So I'm just curious, is there a delay in getting that information to our superintendent, which may then delay getting this information to other students and staff?
So the delay on the dashboard doesn't really impact our day-to-day operations. We've typically heard directly from families more than we've heard directly from DHHS. It's usually us reaching out. Their contact tracing is going on immediately, and I don't know at what point they update the dashboard, but it really doesn't affect our notification or the notification that we may need to make to families. That's happening in real time.
Thank you. That's reassuring. Thank you very much.
Andy, you're muted.
Thank you. It was my turn. So we'll move to agenda item 4B, bullet point, which is the flex day. Last time we asked Mr. Morris if he would kind of give us a snapshot of what it might look like to utilize the flex day as an instructional day. I think that was generally something that we brought back from the AREA or SAU meeting, one of the two. It was something that the sending districts kind of inquired about. So we wanted to just kind of get an idea of what that may look like. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Morris.
So before, I just want to say I had to leave, so I'm no longer co-host. So Patty, if you want to make me co-host, and then I can fill in the role again. And then we worked as a team on some proposals here for this, and I think Patty, if it's okay with you, Andy, I think Patty was going to kind of preface that, and then we could go school by school. Is that okay?
Sure.
So we had a leadership meeting, we've had many leadership meetings, but at one of our recent leadership meetings, we had the conversation about the flex day, understanding that that was a request, probably not just of the high school, but people were interested in knowing what that extra day might look like and having some concerns about what instruction looked like on a Monday. So when we sat down at the flex day, we realized, and I think Melanie pointed it out in the beginning, that day is really taken up with a lot of services, and the schedule for all intents and purposes is cut in half in terms of our staff. So they can't just push into one classroom and maybe have a small group with all of the students, because half of them are there and half of them aren't. So Monday we're using that for a lot of services. We also have teachers who are responsible for teaching remote students and the students that they have in their hybrid classes. And that's been the only day that they're able to have some time to reach out and work with those students. So, and also Tori mentioned in her comments at the beginning, and when the teachers were surveyed, I did hear that they were extremely concerned about losing that day as it exists now. So as a leadership team, we brainstormed about maybe finding a compromise. So if the board is interested in changing the way the flex days are used now, we did put together a proposal looking at the school more than the day itself, because we have 4 cohort B days that have been impacted by the PD day, the testing day at PA, the election day, Veterans Day, and then Thanksgiving break is also off a little bit. So in order to give us a few weeks and to sort of hear the input from the board and what you're looking for, the direction that you're looking to give us about the flex days, we are proposing a change in the schedule so that we can make up some time with our cohort B students, and then 1 flex day to make up some time with our cohort A students. So the proposal from the leadership team is that is still a remote day, but that there's still some class time meeting and a little bit of a different modified schedule that each principal is going to review, if that's okay.
So I'll start with Pembroke Academy, and I'll echo what Patty has said. I mean, we really tried to thread a needle here. To me, there are 3 competing problems. One is a continued need and recognized need from our teachers in order to have time to meet with remote students. Mondays are a critical component of their ability to connect with their full remote students. And in addition to that, at the high school, we still have an unresolved labor issue. And part of that is that there's additional planning that needs to take place for remote students, in addition to students in the classroom. So we clearly have a need there. We also have a need for addressing this discrepancy between cohort days, as Patty had said, between cohort A and cohort B. And quite frankly, November is like the worst month to try to, address this issue, because almost every week is impacted by a holiday or an election day or something else going on. So, it's really, to me, if we're going to try to address those two, that's really helpful. And that brings me to the third need, which is, a desire to increase instructional time with the teachers and the students. And so the PA proposal is really to dedicate 2 hours at the start of the day for teachers to still be able to connect with remote students and still preserve some time for instructional planning, and then to go into hour-long blocks that they can meet with, whether it be cohort A or cohort B. And so that provides some instructional time. It addresses that cohort discrepancy that continues to grow as we move through the month of November, and still preserves some time for staff to be able to work and connect with remote students.
Thank you. Mr. Marston?
Yeah, what he said. Basically the same thing that's going on at Three Rivers. I won't repeat everything Dan said because it is pretty applicable to Three Rivers. I think that the only difference really is that while we would keep the same time frame in the morning for the needs of students and staff, we are keeping our connections group there. That's an advisory group. That's where we meet with small groups of kids to support them. And then our block schedule, as you see it, is basically identical to what we did in the first 2 weeks of school. We have about half-hour classes, and we found those half-hour classes are much more efficient than the 48-hour blocks. We lose kids pretty quickly. After about 35, 40 minutes, we're losing them. So the half-hour blocks were very, very successful. And this schedule does, as Dan had mentioned, addresses the issue of the cohort B group specifically missing a significant amount of time, particularly when we're in, 2 days a week. So we need to make that time up. And once November 27th hits, or this model is reviewed again, I think we have an opportunity to see how well this works and if we can incorporate something else during that time or not.
Thank you. That was a lot of unmuting, just to say thank you. Ms. Gary?
Much the same. I think, we've spent time as a staff kind of talking through this, and I really have to echo how important Mondays are for the staff. There's so much that we've jammed into this day. We spend a lot of time working as teams to support each other. That's been a big thing, is our teamwork, to kind of help each other out through this. So they spend time on Mondays doing that. The planning pieces of it, one of the biggest areas we saw of impact would be our special education services. We're a well-oiled machine right now with those Mondays and being able to really have a lot of those meetings and evaluations and things like that. So we do see that would be an impact if we didn't have that Monday. We're also spending this time using it for professional development, really to improve based on feedback that we've gotten from parents or from students to help us move forward with this, knowing that, it could be longer term. So there's really a lot that goes into Mondays. And that is a big piece of what allows everyone, to kind of work through the rest of the week successfully. And I think that's something that we just want to make sure that we put out there, that every minute of that Monday is used. But we did, knowing Mr. Morris was saying that there are these competing interests going on, and that how could we address the instruction at Hill School if that was something that we wanted to do. Ours is a bit different. That what we're proposing is not a dedicated schedule like a block schedule, such as TRS or PA would have, because when you're planning for the littles and everybody, you're really planning for 10 to 15-minute increments. It's very like go. It's very go. And we get our best instruction in small groups. So we would propose that we have the time to work with students in small groups to provide any of the information that they would need to make up for days, but more on a flexible ability to make appointments. We could do whole group morning meetings and things like that, but we feel that if asked to, we would better provide instruction in a small group setting versus having a dedicated schedule to have a whole group lesson. That's not typically how you teach in an elementary. It's very much small group, differentiated, meeting the kids at their levels. And our remote team has had quite a bit of success doing that. And we would take a lot of cues from what they're doing. So in the end, ours would look a little bit different, but we just want to stress how much that Monday really is currently important for everybody.
Thank you. I guess I'll open it up for questions from the board. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you. So just a logistical question, confirming an assumption of mine. I assume that these proposed schedules only go essentially through the end of November because our plan for which model of instruction we're going to have only goes through the end of November, right? And so therefore, when the board takes up the conversation again of after the end of November, what instructional model are we going to have, you know, we'd probably be again talking about and what are Mondays going to look like during that. So I see heads going up and down, so I think I'm understanding that correctly. Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Andy, this is Ann. I have a question, and Amy does the best notes for the area agreement meetings, but every district in the SAU is asking us to open Monday, at least for Pembroke Academy. So that's information that's being sent over from the area agreement. Am I correct, Amy?
Just opening up my notes. I'm not sure if it's every sending school, but I think it's definitely fair to say a majority.
Thank you. The second question I had is when when Melanie was discussing the Mondays, and she was outlining how important it is to make sure the children with IEPs get that additional support. So I thought at the beginning of all of this, even during remote, that's what we were using Mondays for. Is that still correct?
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Would as a follow-up to that, I'm assuming if there were a change and there was any form of instruction on Mondays, it would necessarily impact the amount of time dedicated to those other services, correct?
So all of the services would still need to be provided, whatever's in the student's IEP. I think it's just a matter of where and how it would be provided. And if students were scheduled, there would have to be students pulled from class. It would be the only way to fit all the services in.
Thanks. Other questions from the board?
So Andy, this is Ann. So my question is, would the Pembroke School Board be looking to open up Pembroke Academy for the Mondays in class learning due to the meeting that we had with the area committee?
It didn't sound to me like this proposal was talking about in the building. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
This is April, and Ann's question does seem like a fair question, even though it's not currently what's being proposed. It certainly does warrant a discussion.
Yep, I just wanted to clarify what was being proposed.
Just to follow up, because at the area agreement meetings, we do have a lot of discussion with the other SAU districts, and they're concerned that we're not even addressing their issues with with our meeting. So I just wanted to see that if this would be discussed.
Sure. I mean, that's kind of the whole topic that we're on. So if people anybody have feelings around in person on Monday, and I would be interested to hear from the administration again what that might entail, impact.
Hi, Andy.
I mean, I can
sorry.
talk a little bit about that. You know, as I was saying, you know, we're trying to thread the needle between these three challenges, being an increase in instructional time, trying to preserve as much planning time and ability for teachers to meet with all remote students, and then, you know, trying to address this discrepancy. Part of where we landed with offering it as a remote day was it did allow us to maximize additional planning time if possible, because being remote, we wouldn't need to provide duties. And so staff would have a little bit of time there too. You know, to answer your question earlier, Andy, you know, the services legally have to be provided, but where I think would impair some flexibility would be in how well we can meet and address the needs of those full remote students. And that would be a challenge. And I think that challenge increases if we were to have students in the building on Mondays. It could happen. We could provide a schedule for that, but it does, you know, impair our ability to thread the needle between those three challenges as well as I think we could.
This is April. I'm just curious if you'll be willing to share with the board any of our administrators. I do appreciate the step forward and presenting this to us, but what I'd like to hear more about is, I'm sure that you guys are talking about future planning, what that might look like, kind of the next step, you know, kind of guiding us through what may happen after this step if the board should approve, and what do you need to make sure that maybe this can be implemented in the building. Thank you. Like, I would just appreciate to know a couple of steps ahead, if you guys are planning that, what that may look like at this point.
Patty, do you want to address that?
I would let the principals speak to that, because I think they all have different ideas. At this point, I don't know that we've spent a ton of time with our staff talking through these, but as a leadership team, we've thought of some different scenarios that may play out to use that day a little bit differently. I don't know. I want to make sure that we're having those conversations in our buildings before we're just putting them out there. So if we can ask the principals what conversations they've had with their staff to this point, I think that would be okay.
Sure, but we have to start with Mr. Marson this time.
Yeah, I'm going to thank Wendy for that. As Patty said, we've had some conversation with staff, not a ton, but there are a number of scenarios that I think are out there. One of which I think some other towns are doing, which is one Monday it's a cohort A group, and on the next Monday it's a cohort B group. I personally am not in favor of that. I think that you only get 1 or 2 times more instruction during the month. You know, there is keeping it the same the way we have it, which is you know, using our Mondays for the things that we're currently doing. We all explained. Another option would be to have all students fully remote on that Monday, so that you would have you know, much like the schedule that we're putting forward for the cohort groups, but everybody would be involved in that 1 day of remote, so that would basically create a skinny day on Monday, and then we could start the week, and then you'd have every other day cohort groups in person. That way, all students would be getting one more opportunity a week, which to me would increase the instructional time for everyone, not just every other week or something like that. So there are some options out there that we can look at. I think we have to be thoughtful about that and to what is the best interest for everyone involved. You know, this is we keep saying it, but this is completely new ground we're on, and trying to make these decisions as we go is certainly challenging, but we want to get them right so that we can do what's best for the kids.
Thanks. Wendy?
The models are the same that John was talking about. We really honestly are looking to the end of November. We haven't spent a ton of time going forward beyond that. There's a lot of, there's so many pieces to this that are new to everybody, and you feel like a lot of the teachers, when you're in it, you're creating all these new things every week, so you're really looking week to week or 2 weeks out. Beyond that, the options that Mr. Marston shared are the ones that leadership we've talked about, but we have not talked too much about what that would look like long term past November with the staff. And it would be something that eventually we would discuss, but right now we're pretty much focused on what it would be between now and the end of November.
Thanks. Ms. Morris.
On the health and safety of the students and staff and the students' education, my biggest concern beyond those two is burnout of staff. And to me, it's easier to justify this proposal when we are trying to balance the discrepancy between cohorts, and we're trying to navigate all of the different holidays, election day, all of that stuff in November. I would really be hesitant, at least for my building, to commit to anything with flex days beyond the 20th at this point. I think it would be important to see how it goes. I do understand the compulsion with the AREA group. I will just say that those boards have K-8 buildings. They don't have a high school, and the issue that we have is, as I've mentioned, that unresolved labor issue. The state guidance document said we can do that short term. Right now, we're going into week 6 or 7 of that. And so that's a real concern of mine moving forward. Again, I can justify it, at least personally, I can justify it when we're trying to, navigate the holidays and lost instructional time in that regard. But it's hard to think about that moving beyond that.
Thank you. Questions?
Andy, this is sorry, this is Ann. Can Mr. Marston, excuse me, Mr. Morris discuss a little bit more further when he's saying labor issues? I'm not sure what that means.
I can, Patty, just the hook if I fall off the tightrope here. But essentially, we have an issue where parents and students were given a multitude of choices over the summer, and that was hybrid or full remote, and then offering to switch hybrid if we needed to do that because of blended families. But what's happened is we now have students that are in the building on, let's say, a Tuesday, students that are hybrid but outside of the building on a Tuesday, and then full remote students. So we have a lot of teachers that are planning 3 different times for the same chunk of content. And the challenge with that is our remote student numbers continue to grow. We've really tried to do a good job of saying that if you're going to go full remote, that needs to be a COVID-related reason. It can't be that you're stressed out. And so we've tried to mitigate that as much as we can. But right now, the state guidance document that I referred to said that, teachers can do double duty for a short term, but they really can't do that long term. And that's what I was referencing, because that is something that is, we are going back and forth with the AAP about that. And so it's a concern of mine long term if that condition were to continue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I get some clarification as to whether we need a motion to approve the plan proposed with respect to flex days?
So I guess I'll let Patty give the official answer. I'm a little hesitant, I think, to Ann and Amy's points throughout the night. of kind of throwing any of this into play immediately without at least notifying or talking with the other area schools. Even if it were something like what we did last time, where we say, oh, approve as long as there's no strong opposition from them or something like that. But I would have a hard time making a change like this without some discussion with them. Patty, what kind of action are you looking for tonight?
I think that we need to give our staff some notice. So if we're going to put this in place for Mondays, it would be nice to know tonight if there was support for this. And I would just caution, there's been a lot of conversation about the AREA districts tonight, and I think it is really important that we involve them in any major decisions. I think they gave their feedback about Mondays, but it's really going to cause problems down the road if every time there are decisions for Pembroke to be made, we take a step back and don't make the decisions in order to go back again to the ARE board that does not meet anywhere near as frequently. So, we did offer to put the agenda in the ARE packet drive, wherever it is. And we did talk to them about Monday and heard their input. So I would just want to be cautious about not making decisions and going back and forth with the AREA board.
Sure. Amy, I see a hand.
Thanks. I'm comfortable with us moving forward to take action on this proposal tonight because we talked about it at our last Pembroke School Board meeting that we would be talking about it today. Also, the timing is such that it doesn't really work too good if we wait for the next AREA meeting, which is on November 10th. And then we decide to take a step like this, but we want to give the staff notice, then we're kind of at the end of this timeline. I did look over my notes from the last AREA meeting, and my notes aren't, they're not the best. They're not the official record, but I don't think every single school district wanted all of Monday to be like a regular school day. I think a majority of them do. And I think this gets us closer to that goal rather than the current status quo. So for all of those considerations, I think that we can take action on this tonight. And I think that the principals and the superintendent are, in the trenches, so to speak, and know what the best fine line between student needs and staff capabilities are. And I respect that. And I think this gets more instructional time for the students, which I think is what we're after. So with all of that preamble, I'd like to make a motion to accept the proposal for the Pembroke School District Flex Day schedule.
This is April. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. As far as discussion, Gene, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, what Mr. Morris said was exactly what I was thinking. I talked to several teachers over the past couple of weeks, got several emails, as we all have, and thinking about this, the three different models, well, not three different models, but you've got the hybrid model where a teacher is planning for in-person and virtual. So two different lesson plans there. And then they're also planning for the remote students. I don't, we all take work home from time to time, but doing anything that would inhibit the teachers from planning, from meeting with students who are struggling, talking to parents during that time, during the flex day on Monday, doing anything to disturb that would be irresponsible of us. The AREA towns don't hire these teachers. We do at PA and Three Rivers and Hill. And I am extremely concerned that taking that away would actually, while giving more instructional time, lessen the value of the instruction that they're getting. The teachers are only going to take so much work home and work at night, work on weekends. And they're all doing it now. and they have Monday to finish that up and prepare for the rest of the week. So I am completely opposed to changing anything that we have going on right now.
Thanks, Gene. I did have a discussion point too that I didn't get in before the motion. I wanted to, and I hate I hate to do this. I'm going to put the principals on the spot more than I normally would. But if I could, so I think when this was originally presented by Patty, she said the word proposal. But what I'm wondering from the three of you, if you don't mind, is to tell me, like, because you're the hired experts in this, do you want this to happen? Like, I understand the competing priorities that Mr. Morris spelled out and everybody kind of agreed with. But I also know, I also want to keep our teachers as happy as we can right now. If it were up to you to make this decision, each of the principals, would you rather overall for your school keep Mondays the way that they have been, or go with what we've heard tonight? I guess whatever order you guys want. Sure, go ahead, Dan.
The cohort discrepancy is a concern of mine. I think that we can address that if we are, creative and communicative in changing some of the days between Tuesday and Friday. I really am concerned about the staff long term. We don't know what the rest of this year is going to look like. And, the spring was really tough on a lot of people. And I mean, the trend right now doesn't look promising for that. So to me personally, I would rather keep Mondays the way they are, maybe look at a way to make them a little bit more robust in terms of expectations for students, but address the discrepancy between Tuesdays and Fridays.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, it's really tough. I do have a lot of concerns, particularly with the cohort B group for the month of November. I'm not sure quite how to tackle that. I have quite a lot of concern about like what we're talking about. We're asking staff to do planning way too many different ways. We cannot do everything for everybody. And we have to realize that. And there's got to be there's a breaking point. And I was gonna wait until my principal's report, but one of these has got to give. Something has to give. And if we're saying that hybrid is working, which when we see that in-person kids for those every other day, we're having success in that area. I would say, you asked me, so I'm going to tell you. I think remote learning is not going to be, we're not going to be able to sustain that. It just is not working for a lot of kids. So we have to figure out another way of doing it. I walk around the building on Mondays and people are, they're not sitting with their feet up. Everybody is right out straight, either working directly with kids, getting ready for the week. And we can't have so many models going at the same time. So I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, Andy, but something's got to give, or else it's gonna give on its own, and that would be unfortunate.
Thanks. Wendy?
Like I said, we spent a lot of time as a team talking about this, and I can wholeheartedly tell you that the staff wants to keep their Mondays the way that they are. Support them in that. This is a really important piece. I feel like this Monday allows us to get better at what we're doing. I've seen so much growth, and we talk about this all the time. I've seen so much growth over these couple of weeks of even just how do I create engaging in lessons that I'm sending out asynchronously and things like that. And so I feel like if we can keep going and get better at what we're doing, we'll find pockets where we feel that comfortability of bringing kids in and working with them a little bit more on those Mondays during our learning labs and starting to develop better practices. I worry, and I've seen it happen, and not just COVID related, but packing too many things on, it waters it down, versus we really want true quality instruction. So this allows us this chance to really focus on honing this craft, and knowing that that is, like John was saying, their feet are not up. They are working from the moment, they walk in the building till they leave. But again, there is this competing interest that we're trying to, bring together, and we would be there to take it on. But I can tell you that, the preference would be that they do stay the way that they are.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions before we call the question?
Andy, this is Ann. So I just have a question for Mr. Marston. So basically, I just want to make sure I heard this right. So basically, the issue is because we have so many different requests for different learning styles. We have remote, we have hybrid, we have, well, actually those two. Is that the issue because we just have so many choices that the teachers have to accommodate each one?
Yeah, that's accurate, and that's part of it. The other part, quite honestly, remote learning is something I felt would be great for a day or two or a week or two. But the further we've gotten into it, kids don't show up, they don't turn their cameras on, we don't know who's taking the assessment. We're having a huge attendance problem with our remote kids, and it's all those things put in you got to remember that puts an additional burden on staff because they don't even know where the kids are. Their emoji might be up, but they might be playing a video game. And that's because we spend so much time chasing kids to make sure, one, they're okay, and two, to make sure that they're learning something. It's not just remote. There's all those pieces that come with it. When kids are in person and during the hybrid piece, they have to plan again for that. But I see quality education going on there. And I think that should be our focus.
Thank you. And Andy, the motion that Amy put forward, I wasn't sure what the actual motion is.
I believe it was to basically accept the three plans as they were presented for Mondays from now until the 27th of November.
So currently what we have, the model that we're following.
No, the plan that was presented from each of the principals tonight for the three different schools. So the PA was the 2 hours in the morning for teachers planning and the 1 hour blocks and all of that stuff.
Oh, thank you. And just one thing before we close up, I appreciate Tori getting on the line this evening and also sending us the letter. If there was any way that she could in future send us what the survey said, so we know what we're talking about in these letters. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and call the question then. So there's a motion on the floor to shift Mondays as spelled out by the principals earlier this evening on a roll call vote. Ann?
Andy, do you mind if you skip me for a moment? Because I'm just trying to reread my notes.
Nope, that's okay. Amy?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Jean?
No.
I'm a no. Ann?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So the motion carries. So we will shift Mondays according to the plan presented. Thank you for the whole admin leadership team for your work on that. And I thought I was getting better at guessing the number of minutes that these topics would take, so I was doing pretty good up until that one. So of agenda item 4C, election location. Board voted to move elections to PA. No objections were heard from area towns. So the November elections will be at Pembroke Academy. I will open up to Patty, see if there's any discussion for further elections or anything else. Amy, go ahead.
I'm really sorry. I just wanted to say on the last agenda item, is it okay if I add into my communication that I'm going to make to Carl as chair of the AREA that at the November 10th meeting, we would like to get input about, you know, what they think about this Monday proposal that we just approved and how they would like Mondays to look after Thanksgiving. That way, when this board is called upon to determine this issue again, we'll have that input.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. So I'll open up to Patty first to let us know if there's anything else that needs to be said on that and elections going forward. And then if we got a minute, and if you don't mind, if you have any additional information from the town side on that, we'd love to know too. Patty?
Sure. So I did reach out to the AREA district as requested and only received out of the other 3 towns, one response that this should be a vote for a one-time only. But that was just one person out of the whole group and no other objections. So we went back and talked about it as a leadership team because we had been talking to Ann and Chris Motika about the concern for the March PD day. And what we worked out was that we could still hold the March PD day at Pembroke Academy, that it was difficult to have students in the building when there was an election, but we felt like that we could still host that day in the building. And John offered that perhaps his staff could park at Three Rivers, walk over to Pembroke Academy so that we wouldn't have to fill the parking. And the March elections tend to be less well attended than the primary elections. So I think we'll be okay if that's something that the board is interested in doing for future elections.
And anything to add from the town side?
Yeah, on the town side, it's concerning that it will be addressed at every single election that needs to be held. As you can see, the school board turns over, the selectmen turn over, so having that to be remembered is challenging. So I think the vote should be, the elections will be held at Pembroke Academy going forward.
Okay, it sounded like what Patty said was that should work. Does anybody have, well, I guess nobody needs to object, there's not a motion yet, but Amy, I see a hand.
So I'd like there to not be a motion on this. I don't think that it's urgent. And so I think that we have plenty of time to ask the AREA for input, just because they have asked for input on pretty much everything involving Pembroke Academy. This is a thing that involves Pembroke Academy. It's not urgent. So there's no harm in just putting this off, collecting input, or even just giving the opportunity for input, and then voting on it after the AREA meeting on 11/10. I understand Patty's point earlier that, you know, it's up to the Pembroke School District to decide these issues, but this not being urgent, you know, we've settled what it's going to be for November. And I totally agree with the town's concern that we should vote on this like once and for all, not on a case by case basis. But I think we can do that later.
Thanks. Other questions, comments?
The only question that the selectmen had was actually not a question, but a statement, is that other districts within the SAU close their school and use their school. So this isn't anything out of the ordinary that they're looking for. And it doesn't seem urgent. And I agree with Amy, it can wait another month. But after that, it takes a lot of planning to get these elections up and going. And so we need to find out the space that we have. So it is a lot of work. So even though it doesn't seem that it's urgent, but I would really like to encourage not going past November for a final vote on this. Thank you.
Okay. If nobody's going to propose a motion tonight, then
I will.
Plan to.
I would like to make a motion that the Pembroke School Board approve the request for town elections and the use of our facility at Pembroke Academy for said elections.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I will second. The question is said election. So is that just going forward, or is that just this current election in November?
And the intent was not to put a date on that on purpose. So the intention is not to limit it. Have we received a paper copy from anything in writing from the town with this request so that we could match language to what the town's requesting?
That would be from Jim Goff. I can check. If it was sent in writing, I guess that would be something that Josh would know. If that was something that they received in writing. I'm not sure if it was an email or not. I'm not sure if Josh is still with us.
I am. We haven't received anything, but the way we've worked it in the past with these situations within the town departments is we wouldn't necessarily ask for that in writing. We would work together to make all parties happy.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second to approve Pembroke Academy for elections. Any other discussion?
This is April just chiming in again, and the reason I'm making the motion is based on the feedback that we have received from our superintendent tonight. Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else. Oh, Amy, go ahead.
Yeah, I have something else. My understanding, and maybe Patty, you can clarify, is that the feedback that the AREA was requested for input with respect to the election in November of 2020 and whether there were strong objections to that. I didn't think that input was collected as to whether or as to about having, you know, all elections at Pembroke Academy.
I honestly don't remember what my email said, Amy. I don't know if you have it in front of you, maybe.
This is April. One thing that I heard Superintendent Sherman voice tonight is concerns about Pembroke School Board possibly deferring decisions to the AREA committee, and that's another reason why I make this motion. Thank you.
All right, last call for discussion.
Andy, can you please hold on? I want to review the minutes from
Sure.
last meeting to see what we said. So the motion last time was to authorize Pembroke Academy for the November 2020 election, so long as Superintendent Sherman talks with Superintendent Warburton, boards and principals, and as long as no strong objections are raised. So that was all about the November 2020 election and not about further elections. So I'm not going to vote in favor of the motion, although I am in favor of Pembroke Academy being used because of process concerns and excluding the AREA when there's really no need to, because it's not urgent.
All right, anything else?
Andy, this is Ann. So the selectmen would also like to find out, so if this is a discussion that we have to ask the other districts in SAU 53, we're going to start a very slippery slope, because now we're going to have to ask them if we can use our building for the budget deliberation for public hearing. We're going to have to ask them if we can use it for the annual district meetings for the school and for the town. So there's a lot of requests that we're going to start sending to all these districts for every single time we use the building. Are we going to come down to the point where if somebody wants to start a driver's ed class, we're going to have to ask all of the other districts if this is allowed? When we did have our driver's ed class in there prior, did we ask the other districts? So if one of them says no, then we can't hold driver's ed. So I just want to find out at what point are we just going to be able to use our building for what we need to use it for?
So I guess this is just my opinion, not official. It is our building, and technically we don't have to ask them anything. This is a fairly new, or at least renewed, conversation. I think stemming back to the decision on how school was going to start in the fall, they felt like they should have been involved in that conversation, so they feel like they should be involved in some more things. But at the end of the day, the Pembroke School Board has say over the Pembroke schools. It's my opinion. I guess I would agree with Amy that this one is not particularly urgent. And to your other points, I would say that I wouldn't see any. I wouldn't have any interest in gathering input from them on those, because that's where the public hearings have always been, where this case that we're talking about right now is a change. Voting has always been at TRS, or at least recently has been at TRS. And so we're proposing a change that would impact possibly instructional time when those kids would be in the building. The public hearings and all those other things that have always been there wouldn't represent any sort of change. So personally, I wouldn't see any value in reaching out to them for that. But I guess to answer your question, we have that final authority. I think I agree with Amy that there's not a sense of urgency around anything right now. So I'm okay with waiting a couple of weeks. Like you said, I wouldn't want to go past the end of November. But as far as things that have routinely happened at PA, I don't think anybody's going to balk at those, unless we're proposing changes.
Well, I'm just concerned about a slippery slope, because if we forget to ask now, the planning committee, the planning board will be meeting at PA for the next meeting. I'm pretty sure that's the location. So that's out of the ordinary. We use the building to use, when we have a big case that we have to discuss and approve. So I'm just very concerned it's going to start getting to a slippery slope. And if there's an emergency meeting needed in the town, we can't have it because we haven't asked everybody.
Yeah, I guess what I would say, that stuff goes through Josh. The only time that I personally would be interested in reaching out to the area schools is if it was going to impact instruction. Planning board meetings happen in the evening. They're not happening during the school day. The election is a big deal. It's people in the building at the same time they're supposed to be students in the building. So I think that's a different case. If there's evening meetings happening in rooms because that's the only place people in town fit, I can't see where any of the other schools are going to have any sort of problem with that. But it's different when there's an election that happens all day long and could impact actual instruction. I hear where you're coming from, and it's certainly not my intention to ask permission from other towns to use our own buildings every single time we want to use them.
Andy, can I call the question?
Sure. Can you remind me of the full thing? I think it was yours, right?
Sorry, it was Amy calling the question, and it's April's motion. So
April, do you mind restating? Sorry, I thought it was Amy's.
I did not write the motion down.
Sandy's got it.
Yes, and we also have it in video, thankfully. But the motion was to allow Pembroke Academy to be used for elections within the town of Pembroke, and intentionally there was no time limit defined in that motion.
Thank you, and I believe Ann seconded.
Yes.
Sandy, you had your hand up. Do you want to add something to that?
No, I just want to make sure that this is going to be okay. I have the Pembroke School Board approves the request for town elections and the use of facilities for said election at Pembroke Academy.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds great. Thank you, Sandy.
Okay.
Right. On a roll call vote, April?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Amy?
No.
Jean?
No.
And I'm a no. So that fails for now. Amy, definitely throw that on the agenda for area discussion, and let's plan to bring it back up in a couple of meetings from now and revisit and see if we can get this taken care of.
Will do. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. So 4D, board reports, SAU exec board. Ann, do you have anything for us?
The exec board went through and had a full exec board meeting, and we went over the budget and the information on what is going to be presented. I believe on the 28th is the next full one with public input for a public hearing. We went over the percentages of raises that were going to be offered to the superintendent and also to the business administrator.
Thank you very much. Any questions? I think most of us were there. Any questions about the SAU board or exec board? All right, AREA committee.
I say ask Amy. She gets the stars on that one. If you don't mind, Amy.
Uh-oh. I see a strange looking yellow triangle on Amy's screen. We may have lost her. So let's skip that for a moment and see if she's able to reconnect. So budget committee is next. We did meet this past Thursday. There's really not much to report at all, which is pretty much what David said at the meeting and pretty much what I said at the meeting. It's still pretty early in our process. And from the town side, things looked pretty similar. They were still, short on car registration revenue and things like that, but not nearly as bad as predicted at the beginning of the year. The projected, shortfall, if you want, for the end of the year was, I believe it was around $120,000, which is not that bad, and it seems like it can be absorbed. I don't know if that's surplus or what. Probably the really only big thing that came out of that meeting is that we got a proposal of a schedule. So it says 2015 at the top, but he changed all the rest of the dates to 2020. We'll start meeting regularly on November 19th. And the first time that we will present the school budget is December 17th. I will say I don't believe that this is a finalized schedule. I think this is still tentative, so these dates could change, but Thursdays are pretty much the standard at this point, so I doubt it'll change much. I also did let them know that the school board will be presented with a first draft of our budget in early November. So I will be communicating with Mark as the chair of the budget committee to make sure that the members get a copy of that, and also make sure that they understand that it is a rough draft. It's the first time that we're seeing it, and all that sort of thing. So every time that we have a meeting where we get an updated budget, I will make sure that the budget committee gets that. And in the middle of December, Patty and Amber and I will take it to them officially. There was a little bit of discussion about whether or not we wanted to have another meeting between last Thursday and November 19th, and the overwhelming feeling was twofold. One, that there's not really a whole lot of use in these little updates, everybody getting on a call for an hour for really no big payoff. And then there was some discussion about how the next meeting will be held. There was some feeling, a couple of folks that were wanting to have it in person if possible, but there was a number of people that were concerned that currently cases seem to be on the rise, and we don't really have any idea what it's going to look like another month from now. So currently there is no decision about the location for the November 19th meeting. Mark's going to consider all those factors when it gets a little bit closer and make that call. I would expect it to be remote, but also the safety center upstairs room has been offered to us if that helps. And I did let Mark know that I'm sure that Pembroke Academy cafeteria could be available if there's not something already scheduled there that date, and if that would be helpful as well. So I offered that up. And that's about it for budget. Questions?
Andy, this is Ann. Can I just let you know on Thursday, October 22nd, the selectmen will be meeting at 6:30 to set the tax rate.
Great, thank you for that. All right. Hey, we got Amy back. So I scrolled too far on my agenda. Amy, is there anything from AREA committee that we need to know about? Nope. All right. And Jean, do we have anything from PACE?
Nothing.
Nothing. All right. I'm not sure if Kevin is on the meeting tonight, but I do believe there is a Kevin. Oh, yep, there he is. So I'll let Kevin talk if he's available. I do believe they're meeting tomorrow night. Is that right?
We've actually had to postpone that to next Wednesday, the 28th. Since I spoke to you last, we did meet with Ms. Gary and Ms. Lacasse, and just kind of brought them up to speed on the conversations we had with Ms. Griffith before she departed. And next week we will meet again and start working our final report out for you.
Awesome. Thanks for all your work on that. We look forward to hearing from you. Any questions for Kevin while we've got him? All right. Thank you. And last but not least, we have the principal report. So we will start with Ms. Gary this time.
So we have quite a few great things kind of going on. I've spent some time over the past couple weeks reaching out to some parents and talking to parents that had possible concerns, and we've had some great conversations about understanding how we can support them and their families through all of this, and really trying to dive into what those concerns mean. Sometimes you hear them, but you want to be able to chat with someone about it. So that's helped us a lot moving forward in the next couple weeks to kind of help our practices a little bit, and really bridging that gap between family and the school as well. Our attendance, we've really put in a lot of work into our attendance, and we're tracking it every week. We meet every Thursday as the in-school leadership team to look at all the kiddos that are, maybe not attending, and then our guidance counselor will reach out and really trying to provide those supports. And in the past couple weeks, we have seen an upward trend of our students that are participating more. We particularly had an issue with our asynchronous days for the hybrid model, not so much the remote learning piece of it. So that's been a very positive outcome for it, is to see that we're getting responses for that and just seeing how we really can support families as well. One of the challenges that we're facing is getting requests frequently to change models, whether it be from hybrid to remote or remote to hybrid. It does cause quite a bit of an issue, especially going into our full remote. So just to give you an idea, for example, we have 70 students that are full remote for us. That's a little over 20% of our population, or 20 to 23% of our population that's full remote. And we're really capped right now at that. So we do put everybody on a wait list. And if we see we have a chance to move someone from hybrid or vice versa to kind of loosen that up a little bit. But it is getting to the point where we have to put people more on a wait list before we can do that. The remote, moving to remote is the part that's most difficult. But we really do want to work with families, especially because cases are increasing. That's the biggest concern. Ms. Lacasse will spend a lot of time talking to them about why specifically they'd like to move, and it is typically COVID-related reasons for that. We had our picture day, that sense of normalcy. It went really well. It was great. Our remote families, they drove up, they had the kids hop out, they came in, took their picture, went out, and it was really fun to see all the kids like all dolled up and their outfits and everything. So that was a great day to just stand in the gym and kind of see them coming in and out. And then another thing, we're really working on that convenient MD screening. We have had more who are not completing it. So we did start sending out a one call now to families that haven't completed it for the day their child's supposed to be there, to help with that, because it is a very useful tool. And we have had some cases that have not been cleared, that we really do feel being proactive and catching those ahead of time has been a very helpful thing for us. So overall, I had mentioned a lot of us getting into the normalcy and seeing a lot of growth in what we're doing. And I'm excited to see that continue. And other than that, I think that's about it.
Thank you. Mr. Morris? I fooled John.
I'll start by just thanking the staff, and specifically Amy Parkinson, our director of curriculum. We had our SATs and PSATs both administered on the same day. That was not by choice. It was by choice, but it just happened to be the College Board's choice. I will just say that it went very smoothly, and I think that was in large part because our staff really spent some time looking over the policies and the Proctor handbook, and it was well organized on Amy's part too. So that I had some anxiety about that, and I was really pleased with how it went. In addition to that, I'll echo what Wendy said regarding back to school. That has gone well. They actually just updated the user interface, and I think it's a little quicker. And right now, the name of the game for that is to just try to continue to emphasize the adoption rate among students and staff. Our staff has been really good about it, and we just need to continue to have our students complete that on a daily basis before they come into the building. And then I'll just finish up by, our Spartan football team has had some success, although not this past weekend, but they were 3-0 prior to this past weekend, and they've really had quite a season. We have some senior standouts, and Coach Moore has done a nice job. In addition to that, I just want to mention that we did have 5 students to the D2 Golf Championship in Keene last week. It happened to be a beautiful day for them. And our girls soccer program held a pink out to support breast cancer awareness and donations for that cause. They did that last week.
Thank you very much. I should have done questions before. Maybe we'll let Mr. Marston go, and then we'll do all the questions.
Yeah, you faked me out last time, Andy. You know, you're mixing it up on. Keep me, make sure I'm awake here. We are basically completed our state assessment. Middle school gets hit pretty hard with that. Every student has to be assessed. And so that was somewhat challenging to do the remote kids and the kids in the building. Kelly and Tenorella, our tech integrator, spent a lot of time in organizing that, and it has gone relatively smoothly considering all the options that we had to deal with. And so that is almost in the rearview mirror, pretty much in the rearview mirror. So that was interesting this year. Our soccer and boys and girls and cross country boys and girls have been having competitions, and it's been I think we all know it, but when you feel it, to see it and be out there in the field, it's just really great to see kids doing something that's normal again. And so while we're not running a full schedule, it's definitely great to see community out and enjoying the soccer game and cross country meets. We not unlike what Amy said about attendance, we have our challenges with attendance, and I think I brought that up earlier. It's just really challenging right now to track all the kids, whether it be remotely or on their independent days, where we're finding that a challenge. Although the longer we stay in a model, and I think Wendy referred to this, the longer you stay in a model, the better you get at it. And we're still creating a new normal, and we're working there. So things are slowly getting better, and we're learning new techniques to provide education to the kids. I did want to mention busing, although we talked about it. I do think, the main goal this week was to get kids there on time and to spend the whole day. That goal was achieved today. So we didn't have any kids missing class time today. So there were some hiccups, but in the end, kids attended the full day, and that in itself, hard to believe, but what a victory that is. The screenings, I'm glad that the other folks talked about the screenings, that those are somewhat of a challenge. However, there is a new upgrade or update on that screening form, and that seems to be better. Also, with that upgrade, it helped our nurses to be able to organize it a little bit better. So we're not spending 2 or 3 hours in the morning going through all the different screening results. It's just a lot of time, and that seems to be getting a little bit better. So overall, I do think we're doing great. Staff is as always have been right on top of everything and doing everything we can to educate kids. And I'm very proud of the staff at Three Rivers. And that's about it, I think.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Board members, any questions for our principals? Go ahead, Amy.
Andy, this is Amy. Can you all just speak to how the kids seem to be doing emotionally as we start to hit a phase where there are now some confirmed cases of COVID in the schools and a lot of teachers and peers talking or maybe even doing quarantines, and it seems to be like, I don't know, getting a little bit more real, and I'm just curious how that's all going for them.
I don't mind starting. Part of the challenge with this is, the rumor mill that's kind of attached to a lot of this, and people acting on inaccurate information. And we try to address that as best we can by really just being a steadying influence, all of our staff. In particularly, I will give a shout out to our nurse who has worked tremendously hard and does a really good job of calming people down while also honoring people's confidential information. And, there's a way to do that, and she's exceptional at it. I should have said it, but I've said it in the past, so I didn't want to be redundant, but the students have done incredibly well with honoring our expectations for social distancing and face coverings. And, to me, at least what I've seen, the anxiety has been more around, missing work or attendance in our hybrid model and that kind of thing. And not necessarily so much in terms of like quarantining and that. Students, there's some of that, but I think it's outweighed by anxiety about just the instructional model in general.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Wendy.
I figured we were mixing it up. I'd go. You know what? The kiddos really have settled in. I would say we had much more anxiety about things when they first walked in the building because they, they knew things were going to be different. But you really don't feel that anymore. We don't really have the rumor mill type of a thing going on. And they're very happy. They're super resilient. Even the masks. It was a big worry that we all had, and it's really not a concern that we have. We have a few that we work with, but I think they surprised all of us adults with their resiliency through this, and it's been great to have them there. It brings like that sense of calm with everybody.
Yeah, I'd echo that. The kids have been pretty amazing. I think the most I've done is saying, "Whoop, your nose fell out. Pull up the mask." But we do have kids that certainly are anxious about, some of it. But we have things in place that we can try to support those folks. Quite honestly, I guess maybe that's why I've been in education so long. Kids are so much more resilient than us adults sometimes, and they're doing a great job. Like I said, we have students that do have those concerns, and some kids have opted out to go remote because of that. However, during the course of the day, we are beginning to see some normal behaviors coming back, which is some of it's good and maybe not so good. And their concerns are now, like Dan said, it's becoming more academic again. And we are, I guess I call that we are creating a new normal again. And it takes time, but I would say, considering what we're doing and where we're at, kids are doing pretty darn good.
Thank you all. Other questions for the principals? Go ahead, Amy.
Those comments just triggered a comment from me for you, I guess, Andy. Are we going to have on our agenda for sometime before the end of November to receive a recommendation from Patty about what the instructional model should be after Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I think everybody's probably thinking about it. I don't remember exactly what our meeting schedule looks like, but probably sooner rather than later, at least start the conversation. So let's plan to talk a little bit about it next time. Any other questions for the principals?
Andy, this is Ann. He'll address that they have 70 remote. Can we get the numbers for TRS and PA?
Do you guys have those roughly?
Three Rivers, I'll be honest with you, Ann, it changes daily, but we're sitting around 55 to 60.
I will echo John, it's a moving target, but we are currently at 72.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Other questions for the administrators?
Andy, can I just do a shout out? I'm not sure if it's from Patty or if it's from the administrators, but for the free lunches for the district, I believe it was until July now. Is that correct?
Yeah, we received a waiver from the government to extend the free lunches throughout the school year, which is absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Ann. I would like to see more kids participate in it. It's an interesting thing. I'm not quite sure why we're not, breakfast is very low in our building, and I'm not sure we're outside standing handing free food out. So.
Is it breakfast and lunch or just lunches?
Oh.
Wow, that's awesome. I'll
What time do I have to be over there, John?
I'm sorry?
What time do I have to be over there?
Oh, name it. I'll set you up.
All right, one last call for the administrators. All right, then we will move on to agenda item number 5, policy review. We've got some of these that are getting a little aged. I guess I'll open up to the board. Is there any of these that you want to tackle right away, or do we want to just go down through one by one? Does anybody have strong feelings on any of these?
Andy, this is April. I would like to have more time to digest some of these, but I know one that's been on here for a while that I would like to at least to see a discussion on or possibly move forward is the KF facilities use.
Okay. We can do that. Anybody want to speak to the facilities use policy? Suggested edits, like it the way it is?
Andy, we did incorporate the edits from both Amy and Ann. I don't think anyone else submitted anything, but I was wondering if we could let Josh speak to those suggested changes.
Sure thing.
So I was able to read the adjusted recommendations today, and they're all great additions. I would like to add some recommendations to some of those additions. On the rental schedule, there are a bunch of NAs that coincide with the Pembroke Hill School that Three Rivers and Pembroke Academy don't have attached to it. So I would just recommend being consistent in removing those. On number 8 of the facilities policy, it's recommended that we close the facilities at 8:30 p.m. In the past, we've always used 9 p.m. as a standard. Specifically in our gyms, and this is to include school groups, sports, dances, extracurriculars, sometimes community groups. We have men's basketball that uses it, little basketball that uses it, whether it's our gyms or our auditoriums, our big areas, our cafeterias. I would just recommend that we stay consistent with our 9 p.m. on that. With the occasional, sometimes we will go over that. Also on number 9, there's a term facilities coordinator. I think just being consistent, it should say facilities director. Number 14 references cannabis. I would feel that that is covered under 13 under controlled drugs. And please stop me if I'm going too fast. Also attached to the policy, there's a new application. I would ask that we keep our old application. And why I ask that is the new application has the principal and the business administrator signing off on the facilities applications. In Pembroke, the application comes to the facilities office first. We do all the due diligence of the insurance, the proper verbiage within the insurance, the scheduling, the walkthroughs, the working out what they can actually do in our buildings or on our grounds, etc. Once we see all that, we sign off on it and we send it to the principals of each school, minus Pembroke Academy, just because that stays within us and we work it out with their office. But we then send that to the principals of each school. They sign off that the space is available. But the facilities department does do all the due diligence. So we would ask that we keep our application going forward. Also in there is the new facility invoice. Again, we have an invoice. I would recommend we make some slight changes to ours per your upgrades or your additions / recommendations. One being that we invoice the group using the facility from our office. We then ask them to mail it back to our office so we can keep the checks and balances, and then we send that invoice upstairs for them to process. Whereas this invoice has that payment going directly to the SAU. So there's just a wall that would be built with the checks and balances. Lastly, there's a bunch of things on the procedure and responsibilities. Although I feel all those procedures and responsibilities are key and a necessity, I think it's probably intended for some of the smaller districts that quote unquote just give out a key and a passcode for, say, Suncook Athletics to use the gym on a Saturday. Here in Pembroke, we staff that. Nobody's using our buildings without a custodian on duty. So the procedure and responsibilities references items such as locking and unlocking doors that wouldn't happen in Pembroke, answering alarms, or if there's issues in that sense to call the police. There's a custodian on duty should something happen. Obviously, if there's imminent danger, we want everybody calling 911. But if there's a beep coming out of such and such a room, we want the custodian to be notified and we'll take the appropriate action. So although I feel all those are key, I just don't know if it's the applicable setting to try and put that onto the groups using our buildings, other than when we do walkthroughs and setting them up to go over those items in the expectations within our facilities. So those are some of my recommendations. I went fast, so please let me know if you have any questions.
Andy, I just want to add one thing before we move on, and that is we had made the determination quite some time ago to leave the forms, invoicing, policies, and procedures outside of the policy so that the schools could update them as they saw fit. So I would want to I don't know how they got reconnected to the policy, but I would recommend that we stick to the policy and then let the building level folks deal with the forms and all the stuff that goes along with the policy.
Okay.
Andy, this is Ann. Can I make a motion that all Josh's changes be updated and then present this at our next meeting?
Sure.
I just couldn't write as quick as he was.
Second.
But I know I don't have to, but I just couldn't.
All right, so there's a motion to have Josh's updates included. I guess I don't know if Sandy got them all or if Josh.
I'll send them upstairs.
Perfect. And we'll take a look at it next time. Are there other concerns that people have, or can we get like the discussion on this thing done so that if we verify next week that Josh's changes are included in there, we'll be prepared to vote?
Andy, this is Amy. I'm good. I'm just going to go ahead real quick. I'm good with all of Josh's changes. Those are great. I'm also fine separating out the forms and, because that does allow them to remain flexible without board action. The one comment, though, that I don't agree with is I do think that something needs to be added for cannabis. It's really ambiguous right now, the extent to which cannabis is or is not a controlled substance. And the law is trending towards it being not a controlled substance. So I think just to be making sure we're catching that and saying that it's not allowed, I think it does need to be called out separately.
This is April, and I would just like to say that I do support the addition of prohibiting cannabis on campus or within our facilities. I think it's important to call out because we can make that determination as the local school board where the state laws and federal laws are inconsistent. I think it's important to have it in there. I think that was a great addition.
Great. I see Josh nodding, so I think he's...
Again, they're all my recommendations. I totally can appreciate that train of thought and would agree with it.
Yep.
This is April again. Regarding the form, I have been part of a community group who has who has applied for an application to use the school facility for community use. It can be difficult sometimes, or you have to make a phone call in order to get the form or find it on the website. How about a nice compromise, if maybe the recommendation is to leave the form off, is to possibly provide a URL link to where that form is. That way, when you have the policy, it's just a quick link to access the form.
Makes sense to me. Everybody okay with that? Have a link to the form at the bottom of the policy. I see a lot of nodding.
Yep, I'll make sure that happens.
Awesome.
Andy, this is Ann. Just a quick question. So in the application where it has the responsibilities, so when someone does rent out our facilities, are they given a copy of the procedures? Or is that something that they should just know?
No, when somebody rents out facilities, it's something they should know. If it's not a group that we're used to working with, again, using just Suncook Athletics as an example, we would take the diligence to go over all our expectations. Should the expectations not be covered, we would continue to go over that with them. We would reference the policy specifically and all their signatures within the application, agreeing to the application, and there's also a signature on there on the hold harmless agreement that they sign off on as well. So should something break, should something not go right, we're on top of it. For instance, if they break a window, I'm going to have that window fixed and I'm going to invoice them for that window. And then we're going to have a discussion how that happened and whether they're going to use our facility moving forward.
Okay, should that information be in the procedure? I mean, on this policy? That it, does the items don't have to be addressed if it's a known group?
I to each their own, I guess.
All right, there is a motion. We have a motion and a second, I believe, to ask Josh to send his changes and to and have this updated to be presented at our next meeting. So I think we need to vote on that since the motion's on the floor. So we'll do a roll call vote. I'll start with Gene.
Yes.
Ann.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
April.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you very much, Josh. Appreciate your time on that.
Thank you.
Any other that we want to tackle? We have.
Andy, I thought the what is it? EEAB. It's the other one that we've had for a while.
I've got EEAA, the recording.
Yep, that's the one.
Yep, that's on a third reading. Are people prepared to discuss and take action?
I'm prepared to discuss and take action, and I would like I'd like us to insert a cross-reference to EHB, the data records retention policy. And with that change, I would be ready to approve this.
Yes, okay, and that's the change that's in red in the document that we have. Okay. Are you making a motion, Amy?
Well, I just want to be really clear because I had this confusion before. So we have one version of the document that has a comment from me in red, which is it's language not ready for a policy. It's my thinking about it. I use technical words like wishy-washy. Right. So we're not obviously voting to put that language in. And the name of that file is EEAA, video and audio recording on school property with AM suggestion. And then we have another policy that is called EEAA, audio and video surveillance on school properties, NHSBA. That's the one that I would make a motion. So I'll make the motion. I make a motion to approve that version, the NHSBA version, with an addition.
I'm out. Can you say the letters again? You're
Yeah,
going too fast.
it's the version in the drive, EEAA, video and audio surveillance on school property, NHSBA. So I would move to approve that with the addition of a cross-reference to policy EHB about data records retention.
Thank you. And just clarify, Patty, if we approve it in that manner, is that something that Dean can propose language for?
Sure. I think the one spot that changed from our current policy was the removal of the second that reads, the administration must receive written permission and consent from the classroom teacher and the students within the classroom prior to the use of recording equipment within a classroom. So it does reference in the sample policy the times that you can record, but this language that he had specifically inserted, pointing out that if we had the permission of the parents and the student or the members, that we could record in the classroom.
Andy, this is Ann. I have a question. We had one teacher discuss that she, at the agreement, that she is streaming her classroom live. And I'm not sure where that would fit in here. Or maybe I just missed something because it's not recorded, it's just streaming.
That's right, Ann. That's why the reference is to specifically recording classrooms. When you're streaming, you're not recording unless you intentionally do so.
So we don't have a policy, or is it one of the other letters that Amy was saying concerning streaming?
No, we don't. I don't think we have anything concerning streaming.
Thank you.
Andy, this is April. This is a question regarding the insertion of EBH, and I'm on board with that, but I'm pulling up EBH, and I just want to make sure that we're not short-sighted. I'm doing a search for audio, video. I'm not seeing, unless it's titled something else, audio or video recording with EHB saying what that retention time is. So I'm not sure if we insert that, do we also need to go and visit EHB so we make sure that we insert a time frame?
Yeah, I mean, EHB is in the review in there for us to review right now anyway, so we could definitely do that if we need to. I honestly haven't read through EHB yet, so I don't know if there's anything applicable in there. But if we needed to, now would be the time, I suppose.
So my read of EHB is that it deals with all records. So it may not have the phrase like audio recording or video recording, but the word record is an umbrella term into or under which audio recordings and video recordings would fit.
That's how I would interpret it as well, but I'm certainly not an expert. All right, I can't remember if we had a second. Amy made a motion to accept the NHSBA policy with an addition of a cross-reference to EHB. I'm not sure if there was a second for that motion.
Second, Gene.
Okay. So any other discussion about EEAA?
Can I just clarify that it is the intention of the board to leave out that paragraph from our current policy about getting permission?
So I guess that's the question I was going to ask if nobody else has questions. I wanted to clarify what you said earlier, Patty. So the difference between, so we have two copies in our drive. One actually has the red edit of Amy's suggestion. What I think I'm hearing from you is The other one is NHSBA, the way it came from them. That one with Amy's suggestion is basically the NHSBA policy, but what we have revised in the past just to add that one paragraph. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So then I guess I'll clarify with Amy that your motion is to accept the original NHSBA one with your edit and not the one that we currently have with your edit. Sorry, you were muted.
Correct.
Okay. So let me. Is there any other discussion around that? Patty, is that a concern from your point of view? Do you think that we need that paragraph as far as to cover us from breaking any other rules? I'm not familiar with all the rules around recording. It seems to me a good idea to get permission before we record stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the regulation prohibits it, and then in the policy that you're about to approve, there is a specific section that talks about when it is allowed. I just think that second paragraph that Dean had added made it really clear, and pointed out that you can't record in a classroom unless you have permission. I thought that was important language.
Thanks. Any other questions or discussion before we call the question? All right, so motion to approve the NHSBA wording with Amy's recommended cross-reference to policy EHB. Language should be provided by Dean if approved. On a roll call vote, April.
Yes.
Anne.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
Jean.
Yes.
And I'm a no. Motion carries. So that's that one. We took care of KF, sort of. We have nothing else on third reading. Is there any other policies that anybody wants to tackle this evening?
Andy, this is Ann. I have a question on DK, which is the manifest.
Sure.
So what I'm concerned about or questioning is there's only 2 representatives that sign off. Is that enough? That's not a majority. Should we have that changed to 3?
Patty, I'm assuming there's an RSA about that?
Yep, if you look at the sample policy from the School Board Association, it indicates that it can be upon the orders of 2 or more members of the board whom a majority of the board has empowered to authorize payments. So the board did, when it selected the folks in the, the different roles and responsibilities, the board voted on the 2 people to be designated to approve the manifest. So it's okay.
So is there an RSA that we can have 2 because we're not a majority at that point because there's 5 of us?
So it's the RSA is that the majority of the board can approve 2 people to do it.
Oh, I get. Okay.
See what I mean?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
The other question I have is payroll done every week or is it every 2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks.
Okay. Because in this policy, it states that there will be records that we can reference. There's the purchase order or an invoice, and I don't see those attached to the manifest when I'm looking at them.
No, we don't attach purchase orders to the manifest. The manifest is run every week. Payroll is every 2 weeks. So you do get something to sign every week. But if you want to make arrangements to come to the SAU and review purchase orders, that's something that we can probably make available to you.
Would it save time for the SAU to run this every 2 weeks instead of every week?
We changed manifest to every week because when you run it every 2 weeks, potentially if you miss the run because you didn't get something in, within a few days before, it could actually be a 30-day delay and you can get penalties for not getting things paid on time. That's why we started doing it every week.
Okay. So to find anything to back up anything on this manifest, we'd have to go into the SAU and request it?
If you wanted to see, if you wanted to match up, so for instance, if there was something for Staples for $500 and you wanted to see exactly what was purchased for 500, then yes, we have those on file.
Because my concern is when I'm watching, going through the manifest, there's a lot of checks made out to personal people and not organizations.
Yep.
The concern I have is manifests are publicly addressed at the selectmen meeting. And if there's anything on the manifest, we can address it at that meeting and then it's voted on. My concern is that this is really hidden and the public really doesn't know what's in there.
So if you had every purchase order with every manifest, it would be boxes and boxes because of the volume that we run through each of the schools.
Okay.
You know, I want to answer your questions though. So if you have specific questions and if you want to get things to me ahead of time, I can, you know, get those answers to you. If you have any questions or concerns, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else policy related that we want to tackle tonight? Patty, is there anything you really want us to take action on? Sorry, let me.
Yep.
Patty, is there something that you need tonight other than those? I think we made good progress on those two. Is there something you would like to see us put at the top of our priority list here?
There's a couple to be deleted that would be pretty quick order. And then, we did receive notice from the Department of Education that our home education policies were out of date. So that's been on there for a while. And I would just want to make sure that one gets taken care of. If it's not tonight, then soon.
All right, April, I think I heard you with a question.
Yes, when we were discussing policy DK, I'm looking at the New Hampshire School Board Association sample policy DK, and there's a blank, 2 blanks where it talks about dual signatures from blank and blank. I'm just curious, what should that be in our district? Like it says, enter according to business office / district protocol. So who would those dual signatures need to be from? The example is building principal or assistant principal.
So our building principals have authority to approve purchase orders up to, it's $5,000, I think, right, John? Shake your head. Yes, up to $5,000. And then it also requires approval from the business administrator at the SAU office.
So it sounds like based on current protocol, that language would need to be changed if we were going to match our current policies.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so sounds like IHAM and IHBG are the big ones for homework, Patty. Is that right? So let's be prepared to completely take action on those next time, if at all possible.
Excuse me, Andy, can you say those letters again?
Yep, IHAM and IHBG. They are health education and exemption and home education instruction.
Thank you.
And then we should be able to finish up KF, facilities use, hopefully, and we got the other one done, I think.
Andy, this is April. Just to help clear up our policy review list, I would like to make a motion that we withdraw policy GBAA, sexual harassment employees, as well as policy IBAA, sexual harassment students, based on the recommendation of the New Hampshire School Board Association.
This is Amy. I'll second that.
Great. Any discussion around those two? All right. On a roll call vote to withdraw or delete GBAA and JBAA as requested or as recommended by the School Board Association. On a roll call vote, Jean?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Anne?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you, April. I meant to say that a little while ago and forgot. So that'll get a couple off. We got a couple done and we got a couple to focus on next time. I think we're in pretty good shape for policy review, unless there's anything else that anybody really wants to tackle right now.
Andy, this is April. Just a recommendation for the 2 policies that you mentioned should be a priority for us next meeting. Could we somehow note the next agenda that those are priorities for the board?
Yep, I'll include it when Kathy reaches out to me to approve the agenda. I will try to remember to put those at the top of the list or put an asterisk next to them or something like that.
Okay, or requires action, something just to trigger us to make sure we
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 6, informational items. Patty, do you have anything for us?
I do not.
All right. Then we'll move on to number 7, public comments. Same as before, in case you weren't here. Quickly, if you are on your computer, please use the raise hand function, and Mr. Morris will look out for that. If you're on the phone, we will get to those after the hands are done or as we get close to the 15-minute mark. Please try to keep comments brief. There is a time limit of 3 minutes. And I will have to ask Patty, if you've got your phone, my phone battery died. I can't run the stopwatch anymore.
I'm happy to do it.
Awesome. Do we have any hands?
Yes, we have Carrie Dean.
All right.
Andy, I am yet again disappointed by some of our members of this board who continue to disregard what our administrators say and what our administrators say would be best for our teachers and students. They are in our building every day and know far better what is best in these unprecedented times. These teachers and administrators are being thrown curveballs after curveball. The principals told you what is working and what would not work. But board members voted to change my children's schedule, 2 of which this affects in no way, as they have no children in our district. This decision will add more stress to the lives of many families who have found a groove or routine between providing for our families by being able to work and support our children in this horrible COVID world. The teachers need their Mondays to stay as they are. Our students need this day to stay as a catch-up day, reach out day. Anne, April, and Amy, I implore you to please reconsider your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I got a little spinny sign on Mr. Morris's face right now, so I'm not sure if he's with us. Oh, I think you're back.
Hey, sorry. Yeah, bad connection. We have Brian Gleaton, if you can hear me.
All right. Yep. Mr. Gleaton.
Thanks, folks. As a pretty vocal proponent of a full return to school historically, and someone who's been extremely critical of my daughter's experience so far, I just wanted to take a minute and personally and publicly thank Mrs. Gary for reaching out to me and many other members of the community to discuss our concerns and ways to potentially enrich the asynchronous days for Hill students. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Other hands?
We have Chris.
Sorry, you blinked out there, Dan.
Kristen Doyle is next.
Go ahead, Kristen.
Thank you, Andy. I am Kristen Doyle. I am a teacher at Pembroke Academy and a parent of students at Hill and TRS. I am absolutely perplexed as to how 3 members of this board approved a change to the Monday flex day when you just heard from all the administrators that this was not the best move. Trust me, your teachers will continue to rise to the occasion and provide the best possible education to our students, honestly at great cost to them. You heard the principals talk about how Mondays are utilized for students receiving special education services and for teachers to meet with fully remote students. How are these things supposed to happen now? Never mind all the planning and preparation teachers do on Monday for their remote days. Teachers are preparing work for students in isolation and quarantine, preparing packets and making copies. This means even more of our nights and weekends will be spent on planning and preparation for the week in individual student situations. You heard the administrators talk about teacher burnout, but did you actually hear them? Do you even care? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Melanie Camello.
Hi, I know that I even if I ask a question, you guys don't necessarily need to respond or answer it. But I just had a comment that while we were on the school board meeting tonight, that Merrimack County has now has gone up into the substantial category tonight with new cases per 100,000 over 14 days, up to 110.5. As other people mentioned tonight, our cases have been rising. And I guess my only comment is the next school board meeting isn't until, I believe, November 5th. If there was an emergency school board meeting, I guess I would just urge the administration and the board to please, if at all possible, notify parents if a meeting were to come between now and then. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have, that's it for hands raised, unless Brian Gleaton or Kristen Doyle wanted to speak again. Their hands are still up, but other than that, nope, we're good. No other hands raised.
Okay, looks like we've got one phone line, so we can go ahead and open that up.
Okay.
If you're on the phone and you'd like to speak, go ahead and state your name.
I think they hung up.
Oh yeah, went away. Cool. We scared them off. All right, one last check for hands.
No hands.
All right, then we will move on to agenda item number 8. If we, the school board has need to go into non-public session in accordance with New Hampshire RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, small letters A and C. And as a reminder, small letter A is the dismissal, promotion, compensation, or disciplining of an employee or the investigation of any charges against him or her. And small letter C is matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the board. We need to enter on a roll call vote. Anne?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
And I'm a yes at 9:27 p.m. All right. So welcome back. So done with non-public. We did have some action. Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the child rearing leave request.
Second.
Thank you. So we have a motion to accept child rearing leave and a second from Jean on a roll call vote. Anne?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you very much. That brings us to item number 9, appointments, resignations, and retirements. I think we have none, Patty?
None.
All right. Then I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
A second.
All right. On a roll call vote, Jean?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
April?
Uh-oh.
I'm here. Sorry. Yes.
And Anne?
Yes.
And I'm a yes at 10:15 p.m. Thanks, everybody. Our next scheduled meeting is November 5. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks, everyone.
Excellent.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Night.